And if you are from WRSA here in the Learning Commons. Okay, so Real High, WRSA staff is here. And for the record, we have 2 staff members who just started today. So, this is Kate, and this is Lauren, and we have a 3rd coach coming next week whose name is Jason. So they got indoctrinated by fire. And, welcome to Acupuncture. Lauren's telling me, is it weird that I'm really interested in this stuff? And we're like, no, well, that's also what it is. Okay, Naperville people who are here. All right, there's 3 of them. Excellent. Westmont, Addison, and Carroll Street. All right, and then we have Jane, who coordinates that group, and Diane, who coordinates all of us, and then Sherry is manager of testing over there. Okay?
Academic.
I'm academic testing, as opposed to specialized. Okay?
Is Jared still the
Did I
specialized
remember,
tester?
has everybody been mentioned in this group? Did I leave anybody out? Which group were you with in the background? Did I miss?
Me, Addison.
Addison, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, that's right, Nina Kutan. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started just because people can, and I won't repeat this beginning stuff that Elise said, but you all understand what needs to be said during that, okay? So I am going to be talking about the writing portion of the Next Generation Acuplacer. We did have several of our coaches already go take the test. Based on their comments, this is the general consensus. It is harder, but a better test is what they're thinking. As a presenter, I think there's some things about it that are easier to present and things about it that you maybe need to brush up some skills on, but nothing new that you probably can't handle. So basically, the writing portion wants to test 2 things. They want to see how well you express your ideas. What does that look like? How well you develop your concepts, how well you organize your thoughts, and how well you use your language effectively. In addition to how well you express your ideas, which is about 60% of the test, they want to know how well you use English conventions or mechanics, okay? And that includes, can you structure sentences right, and do you know how to punctuate? So this is about 40% of the test, okay? So kind of follow along on the handout if you need as well. The test-taking strategies are pretty similar, so is what to expect today. Facts about the tests are the same. The one difference between the 2 tests is the writing test is 25 questions, and the reading test is 20. Okay, so just sort of make note of that. Oh, sorry, yeah, if you didn't get a writing handout, ask Ann. She'll make sure you get it. Sorry about that, guys. Okay? So, of the 25 questions, guys, this is what it looks like. There's 5 passages, each with 5 questions. So we're kind of going back to those of us who did Compass. They're much longer passages than they were for the first round of Acuplacer. And we have 3 examples of the passages on your handout that we'll work through momentarily. Okay? So, passage 1 on your handout is about camping. So we'll use that as we work through the areas that are being evaluated when it comes to the writing test. Okay. As I said, the first type of area that they're looking to test you on is how well you express your ideas. So you might get a question like this: which is the best version of the underlined portion of sentence 1 reproduced below? What is the best version, okay, of the underlined portion? So, take a second, and either on your handout or up here, I want you to read paragraph 1 and be asking yourself, bless you, about this underlined portion right here. What's the best version of that underlined portion? So take just a second and read that passage. So remember, the question is asking, because we always want to read the question first, what is the best version of the word literally? So maybe on your scratch paper, you would like to write down a word that comes to your mind when you think of the word literally. So everybody write down a word. So Anne, what word did you write down?
Well, I was just starting to write literally down.
Okay. Good job.
She's literally writing
Anybody have
down
a word
literally.
that means literally? Actually, okay? So maybe actually, let's see if one of our answer choices is like actually, is actually, all right? So we're gonna go ahead, we don't see actually. We'll see if any of them feel like actually, and we'll do the Eeksta trick, we'll call it. And we're gonna plug our answer choices in. You might think car camping means that you precisely sleep in your car, sincerely sleep in your car, strictly sleep in your car, or do we think we like literally?
Literally.
Because none of these really mean actually, or literally. And so they don't really mean the word that you want it to mean, and so that is the best choice, okay? So that's just kind of one way to play with that. The standard English conventions one, which are against 40% of the test, might give you a question like this. What change needs to be made to sentence 3 to be grammatically correct? For this example, I want you to look at the screen because I have a typo on my handout. Because I had to write this question and I forgot to change it on my handout. So I will change it eventually, but I already printed. So go ahead and read this. And remember, we're looking for what change needs to be made in sentence 3. So what I'd like you to do is, on your scratch paper, I'd like you to take a second and see if you feel like you have to grammatically fix this. Go ahead on your piece of scratch paper, try and grammatically fix it before we even see the answer choices. And again, the handout is incorrect. This is what you want to be fixed. So then let's look at our answer choices and see if what you wrote down on your paper matches or aligns with any of these options. Okay? Anybody want to take a risk? D. Yay for writing center people. Okay. So for those of you who didn't get that right, this is a common comma rule that we see oftentimes in our writing, where we are trying to, let's go back to the example, where we are trying to connect two independent sentences with a conjunction or a boys fan, okay? Although, when I was in college, I learned it fanboys.
Yeah.
Did I just heard
boys
backwards?
fan. I haven't heard.
Oh, I reversed it just now. Okay. So anyway, either one is fine. They but, or, yet, so, for, and nor. And when you have a complete sentence here and a complete sentence here, and they're connected by one of those conjunctions, you have to put a comma before it. If you put your hand over this, and this is a complete thought, and that is a complete thought, then it's working as a conjunction. So if I put my hand over this, does this first part make a complete thought? And does that last part make a complete thought? Then it's working as a boys fan or a fan boys. I think I was a fan of boys. So, I don't know, I just was thinking about boys all the time, I'm not sure. But if you are one of those people who says, you know what, I could use a really good review on commas, I think I need to sit down with the Worcester coach and just spend 45 minutes talking about commas, we are happy to do that. we geek out over that
Yes.
stuff, so that's great. Okay?
Are we not doing the instructions that we had for that like we did in the old one? I might be jumping the gun. But in the original writing one, we had a slide that was dedicated to explaining fanboys. Are we just gonna not have a slide for that, just do it on our own?
We can put it in.
I mean, either way is fine, and like I said, it might be
Show of
coming.
hands of who wants the slide back.
I like the slide.
Okay, put the slide back. I forgot about that slide.
It's a good slide.
Okay, I'll get that. I know what you're talking about. Is it like language use or something?
Yeah, and it actually, yeah, it defines it.
Okay, we'll get that slide back. Thanks for that suggestion. All right, so we're going to continue to review with some of these passages that are in there in your handout. As a reminder, we're looking at these 5 areas. We're looking at sentence structure, and on your handout, it's got the list of questions that you can kind of refer to as to what is sentence structure looking for specifically. Right, so can you understand the basic structure of a sentence? Can you recognize that they are arranged correctly? Can you correct vague usage like vague pronouns, etc.? Organization, how do you determine pieces of information that belong and how will they fit together? You get the idea. Punctuation is pretty self-explanatory. Development of concepts. Can you add things to your sentences or your paragraphs to make them better? That is definitely something that we're testing. And then effective language use is the last one. This one is basically, can you figure out what to say and how much to say of it? Okay? So as we go through the next couple of passages, these are the things we're going to be looking at specifically. So when we look at sentence structure, we might get a question on what is the best version of the underlined portion of sentence 7? Okay, so on your handout in the second paragraph, I'd like to ask you to read that. Keep in mind that you're looking for the best version of 7. Read the second paragraph. On your scratch paper, maybe consider writing down another word that might be a better version of the word although, that would fit here, unless you think although is good. There's some context clues in that sentence that'll tell you that there might be a better version. Okay, so although I can fill my car, instead of carrying all the equipment, I'm also free to bring a comfortable chair, my favorite camping snacks, and a stack of books to read. Does because work?
Yeah.
Did anybody write down because as a word choice? Okay, good. Ding, ding, ding.
Mentally.
Oh, well, on paper. Did anybody write down something else? I did this with Julie yesterday, and she wrote down since, which kind of means because. So you're setting up the same relationship, so it makes perfect sense. So because is definitely the right answer. Okay? An organization question. What is the most logical placement for sentence 12? So you will be asked to figure out where sentence 12 fits best. So see if you can figure that out. Before I show you the answer choices, I want you to write down what you think the answer is. feel pretty good about where it goes? No? Okay, nobody? All right, well, if we break down this paragraph, we can start to kind of look at some relationships that are going on, okay? 11 and 13 are about something that I'm doing. So they kind of go better together.
It should go after 10.
You think it should go after 10? Because?
Because it elaborates on what the campsite is like.
Exactly, that's precisely it. So it's all about what's happening at the campsite and before they go on the hike. So that's what they mean by the sentence placement there, so perfect. Okay, so see how, like, kind of giving the AccuPlace here and not necessarily showing that, this information session and not showing that answer choice right away makes people like get more into the examples is a good idea. Okay, punctuation. What is the best version of the underlying portion of sentence 14? This is paragraph 3. I invite you to use your scratch paper to try and fix it before you see the answer choices.
What was the question?
I'm sorry, what is the best version of
sorry,
this?
okay.
And it doesn't really matter if you know if it's testing, punctuation, or, there's probably a better version of this. I see Maura trying to rewrite the sentence on her sheet. Good job, Maura. All right, so our answer choices are here. Why do we think this sentence might need to be changed, or this part of the sentence?
Too many commas.
Too many commas. Where is the wrong comma? After clips. Because why, Jessica?
Oh, because then, first of all, it confuses the whole what is kept with creamy lens.
Right, because this all goes together, right? So we know that it needs to be changed, so we can eliminate that it's A. Okay? This is not a boys fan because it's not about independent sentence in the beginning and independent at the end. This is a list of items. Okay, so we know our list of items rule. Based on that, what do we think is the best choice? What else could we rule out? There's
C.
another, which one?
C,
C, right? Because what?
because you have that extra comment.
Yeah, this comment at the end is not grammatically correct, right? So we know that B is the correct answer because it does everything.
But why is?
Well, B as compared to D?
Yeah.
Well, because
Is that
of
the
the,
Oxford comment thing?
the list of things. So it would be and the circling bald eagles. So it would be that and the circling bald eagles.
That's
So
tricky though,
Yeah,
because
it is.
sometimes it's needed and sometimes, yeah.
it is that Oxford count.
It is, it's the Oxford. That's what they want,
Ah, okay.
okay?
So-
Because the Oxford comma in a list of things doesn't necessarily require the comma at the end of a series of, am I saying this right?
No, it's the reverse.
But,
Yeah.
but this is what the acupuncture wants.
So they
Okay.
want the Oxford
They,
comma.
they want the Oxford comma. Sorry, I reversed, they want the
Yeah.
Oxford.
Okay.
Okay.
That's nice.
Development of concepts.
C.
We're moving on to sentence 16.
I would have been wrong.
Read
I
the
would've
question
failed.
first. You guys, this is a really interesting question. This is how well you develop concepts, how you can take an idea or something that's written and take it further. Can you add details? Look. So, how would we encourage students to read this? Like, they need to look for examples of narrative and descriptive details when they're reading this, okay? So this is kind of hard to use your scratch paper for because, you know, you could write down some narrative and descriptive ideas, but you get sort of a sense of what they're looking for in this underlined version of the word, right? But they want to take it further. So what would be an example that would match the narrative and descriptive details that were already in that passage. What do we think about A? Yes or no? Why not?
Sounds like something that would go at the end.
It's just not even the same language.
Thoreau should not
It's an
follow hot dogs.
illusion. What do we think about D? This is something interesting. Again, I'm really glad I gave this to Julie yesterday. This is written in third person, and the rest of the paragraph is not. So that's why Julie says no to D, which I thought, good one, Julie. Okay, and then C. Too simple, no painted picture like the other ones. I'm talking to my snug tent, the crickets sing to me. Goes perfectly with the other one, so that's a good one, okay? All right, let's move on to tomatoes, because why not? All right? So we're looking at tomatoes. And this first paragraph I'm going to show you does not have a question related to it. We're just going to read it to like get into it and just get some background, okay? So, read this for meaning. I'm going to quiz you on it. Okay, I'm waiting to see people's eyes. Isn't it interesting when you're asked to read for meaning, how it's just you have to really actively do it? All right, so let's see, Cassia, in one sentence, what is that about?
I didn't finish.
I'm just reading, yeah, I just want the first paragraph.
About how to,
Just this right up here.
maybe how to grow tomatoes in winter.
Yep, perfect. How is this guy growing tomatoes in harsh conditions? That's exactly right, okay? So now let's do another question. What is the best version of the underlined portion of sentence 5? So we're gonna have to look at the next paragraph and try and figure out the best version. Okay, here's our choices. This question is testing effective language use. What should you use and how much of it should you use? Okay, so we're talking about precision and concise word choice here. So we can rule some things out, I think. Can we leave it the way it is?
No.
It's not concise, right? What do we think of this one? There's a little redundancy if we say temperature higher than the temp, right? So it's between these two. So raise your hand if you think C is right. Okay, C is right. The reason that it's right is because it's setting up a relationship. It creates this comparison between two like items. The temperature of the soil inside the high tunnel and the temperatures of the ground outside. So the that of the ground makes that comparison better. So it's necessary to have that. And this is a high tunnel. I kind of wanted to see a picture, so I added that. And let's read on about high tunnels as we try to make more meaning out of this paragraph. How am I doing, Jan?
I just like to read on more about high tunnels. Now I'm engaged.
I know, me too. See, Carl, I edited visual.
That's right.
I did, that one thing.
I know, it's
Yeah, high tunnel and greenhouse.
Well, not all greenhouses are high tunnels.
But our
And not all tunnels
relationship,
are.
I
They
like
are
it.
all high tunnel greenhouse.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Tunnels?
On that last one,
Mhm.
That's.
can you go back to that? Okay, now, what did you say the reason was?
And to be honest, Susan, I had to read it from my notes, and it's underlined in my notes. It creates the logical comparison between two like items. The temperature of the soil inside the high tunnel and the temperature of the ground outside. So by including the word "that of the ground," it's more of the comparison of the like.
So that is
Items.
the reason why that's the right answer. I was
Yes.
just wondering because it says a temperature, but then, and that's singular, but then those would be plural, wouldn't it? So I totally
Well, that's why the those is wrong.
Yeah, that's why
That's what makes it wrong. That's also what makes it wrong. Good, that's actually great. I'm gonna add that to the notes. Those is wrong.
Julie didn't tell you that?
No, Julie didn't. Fired. All right, moving on.
Can I add something to that point? Because
Yeah.
I think, is there still a little confusion with this one? Is there? Well, so when Margaret and I first ran through this one together, I initially thought it was D, but I had to think about it a little bit longer because if you were to put D, warm the soil to the temperature higher than the ground outside, it doesn't specify that it's talking about the temperature of the ground, so it could be mistaken for the actual height of the ground, if you were to say higher than the ground. So I think it's just more clear that you include that of the ground
So you need the that to, as.
to specify that you're
replace-
referring
yeah.
to the
temperature.
temperature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys. All right, moving on. Since Deanna's entry, then we're gonna move on. And we'll practice some more, but we're still on tomatoes,
Yeah.
okay? Again, if you find yourself confused on any of these items, come on in and see us and we'll help you one-on-one, all right? Here we go. What is the most logical placement? This is testing organization for sentence 9. There's a lot of clues in here. Julie didn't even read the whole paragraph. She looked for all the clues. I don't condone that in any way, shape, or form. But we see we've got some references to months here. We've got some references to things happening to the tunnel in here. And so, if I told you that these were the answer choices, where do you think it would go best? Look again. Do you guys think it's one of these two? Okay. Raise your hand if you think it's this. Raise your hand if you think it's this. So we're torn. It's either after sentence 10 or sentence 11. This starts within March, so it could be after 10, but they cover the plastic on the arches, and then they uncover them. So what happens here? Oh no, these are uncovered.
Yeah.
So where does it go?
Maybe after 11.
After 11. So that the trick is to cover, uncover, and you gotta kind of use the months, and you gotta kind of move it down that way. Make sense?
You can also figure that one out by just combining, like 10 and 11 go together, right? So like in February, it's time to do this, and before they can do that, they have to do this other thing.
Yep.
So those
Do that
two
too.
sentences have to stay together either way.
All right, so good job. So this question, we haven't seen one like this before. It starts with in context. You saw it for perhaps Lisa's reading examples, but what is the best version? This is one that you definitely can't skim because you have to look for answers, the answer with clues before, after, or from schema that you bring. So you're gonna have to really take a close look at this paragraph and see if you can find out the best version of this,
You can ask a question.
as it is in context. Okay, and here's your choices. As it is now. Savvy? There's some yeses. Let's keep looking just in case it's not the best. Intellectual? Cunning? Okay, good. So just because you think that it's right, be sure you keep looking down your list, okay? All right, now this next one, I don't know. It's not the most interesting topic to me, so I find myself having to really work hard at reading this. I'm just saying. No, I didn't skim, I didn't. So I don't want you to skim because you may have to present this or work on this with the student. So, we're looking at the third passage. We want to know what the best version of the underlined portion of sentence 1 is. Sorry. So remember, effective language use is what do we say and how much of it do we say? So if we look at, they're looking at the unprecedented scale that has never been done before. Well, if it's never been done before, it's unprecedented. So it's redundant already, right? So we know A is wrong. So that means probably B is wrong because it's saying the same thing, right? So it could be this, and novel and new mean the same thing. So our best choice would be C. Make sense? I'm sure all of you got it right then. All right, here we go. This is another one of those weird ones. Look at it. Okay, we're looking for a punchy, short transition that signals a shift to the topic of the next paragraph. So you guys, when you read the first paragraph, you can't stop there. You have to read the second paragraph because we're looking for something that's punchy that will connect them. And I'll tell you that all the answer choices are punchy, but they're not all good transitions. So make sure you're looking at both paragraphs. We have to exit here and enter the next one with a punchy transition. Okay, so we see, let me go back because a lot of your eyes weren't up. Paragraph 2 starts to refer to things in wartime, right? We see that. So we might want to look for a punchy transition that is related to that and see if it works. So enter the business tycoons doesn't necessarily work here because A, it's not talked about in the second paragraph, it was talked about in the first paragraph. And we're shifting to the next topic. We do have one that's related to war, so that could be a nice transition. They're not really talking about today, and they're not talking about any exceptions. So the most punchy transition that is the best choice is B. Okay? So, that would be the one to choose. Punctuation. Oh boy. We might need a slide, Deanna. What is the best version of sentence 5? So you really don't need to read the whole paragraph for these punctuation ones. So if we look, here's our choices. Carl, I should have won an extra prize for this one to see who would get this right. I've got an erasable highlighter. All right, who thinks they can do this one? Who's here?
I'd say B,
B, because why?
because of that pause, it's like, it's an effective way to introduce something.
So what's the rule with the hyphen?
So the hyphen is when it's more like the longest pause, so like when you're introducing something, 1 second.
Does anybody else
Wait, I
have
don't
an
know why there's
idea?
a comma after.
Okay.
I think it's D.
D.
Because the other two options keep the comma after was, which doesn't belong.
Okay.
So that would make B wrong, because the comma's after
And
was.
C.
And C.
it's as it is now.
So A and D.
A.
So Kate's comment was right, the comma after was would make both of these wrong, that would eliminate those. So it's either right, or it needs to be changed to this. Now I want you to look at that closely.
I think it's C.
Oh,
It took a while, if there's a comma before the last, before the name.
comment.
I think it's A.
I think it's A.
Raise your hand if you think it's A. It's A.
It's A.
Okay, so the reason that it's A,
I wanted to move his name.
sorry, but I,
Yeah.
okay, it has to do with his name. Worcester coaches, where are all of you all? Were there any other men in charge of 6,000 wartime scientists at the federal payroll? It was just one man. And so we know that it's this guy. It's not really essential that we put his name. He's a non-essential
At the end of a sentence.
at the end of a sentence. When you have a non-essential, this is my visual trick. When you have a non-essential, you have to use a comma to separate them from the sentence. So, to review non-essentials, I have a brother. And he is my only brother. Oh, look at how big my handwriting is. Hang on. I need a slide. Okay, hang on. I'll get Julie on this. All right, my brother Brian is smart. He's my only brother. So I don't really need to mention him because he's my only brother. So he's non-essential. So I would separate him by commas. But if he were one of two brothers, and I said my brother Brian is the youngest, it's essential that I mention him, and so I don't put a comma, okay? And so if you have something that is essential, no comma, right? So that is the rule here. It's not a lot of fun, I know, but that's what it is.
I don't understand the difference of your two examples though.
So in this particular, I should say,
It's interruptive too when you do it in the middle.
Yeah,
Because
it's
on
an-
that one, it's not.
yeah,
but-
it's an interrupter, but regardless, it has to be separated by commas if it's not essential to name. In other words, if your sentence will still make sense if you cross it out, it has to have commas. He's my only brother. I should have done like a different, it's my sister or something like that. Susan?
For those of us who will be presenting this, do you put some of those rules
Yeah, we'll
to
make a
explain
slide.
in the
We'll do a slide.
notes part?
We'll make a slide. Oh, it's all in my notes. Look, there's my
It is in the
formula.
bottom, okay.
E, N equals C, but I think maybe we'll make you a slide. That's easy. For you. Susan's slide.
The
Oh,
other
sorry.
thing is that you can move that too, like you can say on the federal payroll, comma, Thunderbird, or comma, it's asking me, what's an electrical? You can, even in that sentence, Brian, you can say, Brian, comma, my brother, comma, my start, so you can move it, so that's not, I mean, not always, but.
Well, and I think you want to ask yourself, is it necessary? Does it have to be in the sentence? And if it does, then no comma. It's so important that they're not interrupting. If they're interrupting, they need a comma. Excuse me, you don't have to be part of my sentence. You're bothering me, but thanks for the detail. Does that make sense, you guys?
It does.
Okay. I'll tell you where to get more help on that one. Jane, you want to have coffee over that? Essentials and non-essentials?
I would love to.
Okay. All right. Look at this question. It blurs the focus of the third paragraph. What sentence blurs the focus? So read the third paragraph, and if one of them makes your eyes go goofy, that's the answer. Again, this is one you can't skim because you have to read all of them to see which ones you read with clarity and which ones are blurry. Okay? Did any, raise your hand if you felt blurry with sentence 8. 9, 10, 11, 11. Let's see. Nice. Ding, 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 ding. Good job. Okay? Moving on. Best version of underlined portion of sentence 13. This is a sentence structure one. It's part of those conventions or mechanics. That's 40% of the test. What's wrong with sentence 13?
It's a run-on.
It's a comma splice or a run-on, right? It's two complete sentences running into each other. So we can fix that in one of two ways. We can restructure the sentence, or we can punctuate differently, or we can do both, right? And so here are our choices. C? Why is it not C?
Because then it makes, it's no
Not
longer.
independent.
You know why they dropped the word
It.
"is"?
So it's B.
So it is B. Okay, but C would be correct if it were in there, but they were sneaky about that, so take your time on that. Okay, so those are the types of questions that you'll get asked. One of the things that I wanted to do, I wanted to take you guys to Union Test Prep. Diane, I sent you that email saying that we're waiting patiently to see if Union Test Prep gives, and they did, you found them yesterday.
Wow.
So, this is the best place to go. And for this second link called Union Test Prep, it's also in Elise's PowerPoint, it's also on the handout. But I'm gonna go there so you guys can see. Particularly when it comes to those punctuation and sentence structure examples, if you're one of those people who's like, I don't remember the non-essential rule, I know I learned it a long time ago.
It's because the links are like.
Oh, sorry about that. So it's Union Test Prep. See this, it's right here if you guys want to write it.
It was the same one as originally.
It's the same one, they just updated it, yeah.
That's the good one.
Yeah, that's the good one. So, for example, I'm gonna go to flashcards. And I'm gonna scroll down and I'm gonna go to next gen writing and I'm gonna hit go. And so if you're working with a student, you could just do flashcards with them. Find the error, if any, in this sentence. And then you flip it and it gives you the answer. And then it explains the answer. So the flashcards are great, the practice tests are just what we did, but here's what I found yesterday that I'm like, I need to spend some time here. If you go to next gen writing, here's next gen reading. And the old AccuPlacers are still here, or the current AccuPlacers are, but the ones that are coming in late October, right here-ish, we're gonna go to writing. So it kind of talks about what I talked about. Here's all the areas that are tested. It goes into great detail. But if I go to the next page, let's see. Oh, yeah, okay, so it goes into conventions. So subordination and coordination, parallel structure. I only gave you 2 or 3 of the examples. All of these will be on there, okay? Modifier placements, verb tense, verb mood and voice, pronoun person and number. So play in the study guide as well to kind of review some of those things, okay? So we love union test prep, right, Elise? We really were excited about that. So in response to Susan's question about, where do you explain this stuff? So we, like those of you who have done the AccuPlacer before, put all of our notes in here. Unfortunately, if you're in this room, the computer does not have presenter notes on the computer, so we print them. And we will create a kit for you to use with our notes and handouts. Did anybody find anything goofy about the handouts? I know that I made that one mistake and I've already made the change, but let us know if you find anything in the handout that needs to be changed. And then off
And the
campus,
links on both.
the links are on both.
The links are really, it's like they're hyperlinks down here, so they're really the real pages.
Ah,
So those
okay.
need
But
to
they
be.
show up.
What?
They show
On
up.
Elise's, yes, but
Oh,
not on this
okay.
one.
You know why at least printed in color and I
Yeah,
printed
no,
in
that's
black.
fine.
Okay. So that's interesting to know though, maybe because we don't want to print in color, maybe we could change that. That's a good point. So we welcome any feedback. So off-campus people, we'll talk about how you want us to get you those resources. You might just want to make your own. We'll put them in the U Drive. It will be the handout and the PowerPoint itself, and you could print the presenter's notes and make what changes you want and the hole punch and put in a binder, and be in control of what yours looks like, and if that sounds feasible to everybody. Okay, so, once we kind of clean this up and add the slides that you've asked to, the last time we rolled this out, there were a couple versions here and there, like people gave it and then they came back with feedback, like Margaret, I noticed when I was, like the Oxford thing, never even came up, in my mind. And so everybody comes with schema and has ideas. So if there's anything like that is a drastic change, and we'll keep you all in the loop. And then in terms of rolling it out, we don't know when or how. And this writing one is actually not even a for sure, but it's about 85% for sure that we're doing this. The reading is for sure, right? We've got cut scores and everything for that. But the writing, we're still kind of waiting. Do you want to talk to anything about this or not really?
We don't have cut scores for anything.
Oh, I thought
I
you
mean,
did.
there's a correlation table.
Oh, correlation table.
But the
that's right.
faculty haven't established what the cut scores are.
That's right, I apologize. Yeah, correlation table. This is why I'm in writing and reading.
Right place there, but that was mentioned, but I don't think they're gonna go that route.
Not enough of the faculty have come in to take Right Placer to
Right Placer's
make us
always,
think.
it's always been an option, it's the essay like E-Write was. But, so I thought maybe they were gonna entertain that, but Nicole Mattis hasn't come down to take it. And last I talked to her, I think they didn't wanna make major changes, so they were just going to transition from a multiple choice subjective test to a multiple choice.
So you can see this.
But I can't say 100% for sure they won't change their mind again, but what I know right now is that's the direction they're going.
So this was worthy enough to do a second time, because it is really different than the last one, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. And
Yeah.
so, and I think this is about the amount of time we want to spend on it, because minds keep changing, and, and we'll give you this, and I think we'll get our students in a really great place to be prepared for this. Sherry, is there anything else you feel like we should know from a testing perspective?
I have one idea. As far as needing to have their ID number with them, they
Oh.
don't need to have that.
Okay,
No, as
Well,
long as they have a photo ID, we can
we
look them
won't-
up,
we won't
but we wouldn't turn them
Turn them
away.
away solely based on the fact that they don't have their ID number. They have to have an ID number, meaning they have to have filled out the admission form and have a 7-digit colleague ID number in the system we can look up. If they don't have that, we can't do the test. But if they bring in their ID and they don't know their number, we can look them up.
okay. Thanks, Susan. Anything else, Rose?
I could be the opposite of every off-campus person, but I just want to know as a non-reading, writing, speech associate, that we have everything in the script that we need to know. I mean, I would gladly take your exact one, but for the notes, and I know you said the last time that we don't need to teach this and that, but I can't tell you why, and I could choose the wrong answer. If it's not in the notes, I need to know what the grammar rule is, and do we have everything we need in our script to conduct the session?
Most of the script does tell you why the other answers are wrong.
Okay.
So, yes, and so for time purposes, I might not have done that route. So I knew the answer wasn't the one with the hyphen. I wasn't really wanting to go into hyphen rules, so I said, does anybody else have another answer? So you could even just do a dance if you have to, and it doesn't, and just focus on the rule that we have to focus on to answer this question.
That's written down.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Yeah.
That we-
And I would use that study guide from Union Test Prep to review.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we also want to make sure that we don't answer too many questions like that, because it can make the session go over the
Right,
50 minutes.
exactly.
And then we're going to lose their attention.
Right.
Another point I would like to ask, do you think that it would help for those of you who presented to have some kind of handout that you give to the student at the end, in addition to this, but that has these resources on it specifically? I was thinking of a bookmark or a half sheet or something. Is there a need for something like that? Because basically, I'd forget that it was on here if it was me.
Oh, to separate it out,
Yeah.
to have one, like, we used to have that one two-sided, and instead of having the passages on there, it was like helpful rules, and then the resources.
I mean, it could be a separate document that we put on Tagboard, or Lindsay develops something that the student, that the student has in their hand, sort of like the Alex card, which we only print those in 5,000 batches at a time.
And the advantage to that is that even if they aren't in the session, we could still hand them out to people
Right, yeah.
Plus,
who
if
weren't
it's
in
for
the
a lot of
session.
students that come in to test, like if they don't do good on their first try, we have been handing out, like Deanna said, just the 2-page with the passages on it. This isn't useful because they're not in the session, but like Deanna said, yeah,
Like a
maybe another
handy guide,
document
in case
that
someone
is
comes in.
self-explanatory.
A quick reference to
Right.
study
Yeah.
for the retake, yeah. I
You
agree.
could do your links for your resources on one side, and then on the other side, do some of the stuff that we've been talking about. A rule about non-essential clauses, a rule about Oxford commas, a rule about, just like a one-liner kind of on the back of it, and everybody would get a different one, but at least it's something that they know is gonna be on the test, that they can, just sort of become aware of.
And another way that that would be helpful too is we don't have students coming into the Learning Commons that won't go to the session, and we can use something like that and do a mini info session, which happens quite a bit, just to help them before they leave. They can take it with them and then go to those specific links to practice on.
You could do, you could do that. I will say this, when it comes to this links, this is a YouTube, Elise, how old are you on these YouTubes? Exactly. They're at the bottom of the list. And you'll see why. I mean, he's reviewing those rules, and so that's why we kept them.
Yeah.
But they're college kids doing,
And when we first started putting these next gen AccuPlacer workshops together, there weren't many sources of
yeah,
extra
I mean,
resources
yesterday
out
you
there.
had test prep with
Yeah,
one.
just
Or
yesterday's.
Kathy told us last week. and
Yeah.
we were like,
Yeah, a student found it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
weren't too many options out there. But to speak to the types of handouts, so it's similar to the ones that we do now, right? You're just saying, because we have those separate ones, and yeah, we would just want to update
It's
those
fine,
with the.
yeah. There's less
Yeah, there's less
Should
resources.
we just tell people to go to the Union Press and
You can,
not,
I mean, that'll work them
and
through.
not give them so many options and say, go to
Go to
this
Union
site?
Test Prep.
Well, although the one thing that before this union test prep came out, we relied heavily though on the AccuPlacer, the ones that were emailed to the coaches. Which one was it, Margaret? This first one here? Yeah, this was kind of the thing that set the foundation. So the union test prep is great, but there was maybe one or two other sources that really were
Yeah, they could
helpful.
just Google AccuPlacer College Board and get everything that they want there as well, but, I mean, you know, so this is.
Well, the
sample
COD
questions.
website's gonna be updated too, right, to reflect that?
Yeah, we can put these on the website too. So I guess I'm happy to do whatever you want. Right now, we only have a few. Union Test Prepper and whatever AccuPlacer gave us. The app is how we created this presentation. So many of our questions came from it.
Actually, I think that's better. When you give too many,
Yeah.
I think you should give just a few and
The best.
the best ones.
Give the two, right?
Because they're not gonna go to 10 different
No.
places.
So we're happy to do that. That sounds great.
And I will say, one of the big differences between this next generation and the first one is that it doesn't hit those rules the way the first one did. I mean, when we did that handout, it really had those rules reflected on the test. This test smears like everything. And that's why I was curious of how we were gonna do the PowerPoint, because it really shifts it into not distinct categories. And so those things will help them, but they won't help them as much as they did before. So yeah, I mean, we could have the handout, but it's not as clean as it was before. And when you take this next generation test, you'll see what it is. It's, yeah, I don't know.
All right, well, I welcome any feedback. Thank you so much. We're